Gary Varner. Before I begin this episode, I wanted to preface this video with like a post-edit clip. You're going to see me say some stuff about institutions and how they typically default to a cover-up and how that default is not necessarily it's like evidence of guilt. In the video, you'll see me change my mind on this. I think it's very evident that Bethel did believe that Shawn Bolz was guilty, and that influenced their decisions and how they handled things. I basically came to that conclusion about halfway through the video you're about to see. I'm keeping my initial thoughts in because the whole point of these reaction videos is to, react. And so I felt like it was important to show my opinion at the beginning of the clip versus my opinion at the end of the clip. So just bear in mind that when you're hearing my 5-minute spiel before I begin reacting to Mike, that it's going to dawn on me about halfway through the video that Bethel knew. So I wanted to keep that in there, and I wanted to basically add this little note at the beginning that my thesis statement at the beginning of the video is wrong, and you're going to see me change my mind. So that's all I wanted to say, but for honesty's sake, I wanted to keep my initial opinion at the beginning of the video. So just so you know, that's there, and that's all I wanted to say. So thanks, guys. Welcome to Faith, Fiction, and Folklore, or as we like to call it, the Tri-F Podcast, where we try not to mess the podcast up. And today, we're going to do one more segment on the Mike Winger video. We wanted to cover the whole thing, but unfortunately we can't because it's 6 hours long. So we're going to stop about at the halfway mark. If you want to watch the entire thing, it's on Mike Winger's channel. It's Bible Thinker. The title of the video is "The Skeletons in Bethel's Closet Are Now Going to Speak." The video is talking about Shawn Bolz, the allegations against him, and Bethel's attempted cover-up of the situation. And that's the last part of the video we're going to cover for now. This would be Bethel's reaction to the allegations, how they handled things. There was a sermon by Chris, I'm going to mispronounce his name, but Chris Voltaire something. Chris something. He was one of the guys in charge of the cover-up, and he gave a sermon. It was not well received by some, and I think Bethel is supposed to give another response next week, so we're going to try to cover that. But we wanted to at least get to the point, or at least I wanted to at least get to the point where Mike talks about Bethel's reaction. And I'll start with my opinion on that. Obviously, it was not a good reaction, and trying to covering this stuff up is never good. Unfortunately, these kinds of situations, it's just typical for any institution, be it a church, be it a business, be it a board. It doesn't matter. The default is don't tell anybody anything and always cover your butt. And this just seems more of that. And it's not, I don't think it really says anything one way or the other in terms of Shawn Bolz's guilt. I mean, if you've watched the last episode, then you know that the allegations are pretty harsh. They're pretty vile. Regardless of whether Bolz did, well, let me just put it this way. Bethel's reaction is not going to be telling one way or the other as to whether or not Shawn Bolz actually did these things. But it is frustrating. It does speak to the arrogance of just basically a lot of people in charge of various institutions. And I don't think this kind of reaction is ever good under any circumstances. You should just be open with people and tell people what's going on instead of treating them like dumb plebs who are going to, hang you and charge your church or whatever with fire and pitchforks. Like, the condescension that these guys typically have towards people is the problem, and it's typical. And we're going to see Mike talk about a clear, obvious example of that, and it's made the situation worse regardless of whether or not Shawn Bolz is guilty of things that I think should put him in jail if he is guilty of them. And I don't know if Shawn Bolz is guilty or not, but more to the point, I don't know how you verify this with any sort of certainty. I mean, I think Mike has done the best he can, and that is looking at the various witnesses, comparing their stories. You know, I trust he's asked questions as to whether or not these guys have talked or whether or not the same person sent them. All of that stuff. Like, you would verify the witnesses' accounts, but without getting the law involved in this kind of thing, I don't know what else you could do. And I don't know what all Bethel's, investigation entailed. But that's the problem. Bethel hasn't actually said anything about the nature of their investigation. So who knows if they actually did an investigation? And it's unclear. It's like most of them seem to believe these allegations. But then it seems like Chris in particular didn't. Or at least at one point he did, and then he turned around and changed his mind. Well, what changed his mind if he did change his mind? We don't know, because Bethel won't explain what happened. And this is the problem with corporations covering things up. Ultimately, whether the person is guilty or innocent, the institution is always going to end up looking worse when they take this approach. But this is the default, so we're going to see an example of that. So with all of that said, let us continue with Mike Winger's video.
So, one of my witnesses, he went to several charismatic leaders years ago, and he did this so that by early 2020, a bunch of them knew about Shawn Bolz, and they knew about his disgusting, gross, perverted, domineering, sexually harassing behaviors. And they went to, let me give some specifics. They went to Patricia King, who behind the scenes was very supportive and very much like, I want to help you. I want to help this situation. I care. She recorded this guy's full story. Like, there's an audio recording of his entire telling of his whole story. Actually, it's 3 different recordings. And she recorded this so that she could send it on to Cheon and send it on to Chris Valentin. And so everybody, at this point, it was like everybody was knowing about this stuff. In fact, let me put their pictures up for you as well. Chris Valentin, he knew.
Chris Valentin.
Okay, with my witness, with his approval, she sent the...
Chris Valentin's the guy I'm speaking of. I was scared to death to say his last name, but it's Valentin, Chris Valentin. He's the guy that gave the service last Sunday, was not well received. So this is the guy that's like wavering back and forth. It's like at one point he believed the allegations. It seems like now he doesn't, but we don't know because we don't know what all Bethel did to verify these claims, if they did anything at all.
Information on to Chris Valentin. He listened to the recording. He was sent it. And the other major charismatic leader was Shay. I think it's Che. I don't know. Anyways, it was this guy who's running for governor of California right now as we speak. And these guys all knew. They knew about Shawn's depravity, and they knew about the evidence that he had faked prophecies and taken advantage of people. These are people who had helped him, who had platformed him, or otherwise assisted Shawn to get to where he was. And
for the record, I should point out that I think Mike has done as thorough a job as can be done proving this guy was a fake prophet. He was using Facebook. I don't think there's any argument on that at all. And so that by itself should be enough to kick him out of these circles. So there's that as well. I mean, I'm always a little hesitant with these SA allegations. I feel like a lot of research needs to be done to verify those, but the Facebook stuff, that's night and day. And he should have been kicked out years ago just for that.
They knew. They heard the recording. They knew about multiple victims, not just the only one that I'm talking about who was recorded. So Chris Valentin also told Danny Silk, and we have evidence of this in a text message. So at this point, Chris Valentin starts having a conversation, a correspondence with one of my witnesses, one of the victims, guys who he's not forever a victim, but who was victimized by Shawn. That text conversation I'm going to share with you now. I'm going to put on screen, and you're going to see this took place starting in April of 2020, but going all the way until, is it sometime late 2021 or something like that? I'll show you the dates when we get there. But here's the conversation, and we're going to walk through it step by step so you guys can understand that even though Bethel more recently implied that they weren't sure that it was all true, there were allegations and Chris implied on Instagram recently that it was like uncertain as to whether it was true. You will see through these text messages that was not his posture in private. In private, he knew it was true. In public, they were doing damage control and cover up culture. So here, my source says, "Hey, Chris, I hope you're doing well. Are there any updates with the situation about Shawn? I believe you've received the audio recording of my experience, but I'm wondering what is next." Again, Patricia King recorded it. Sent it to Cheon. Cheon was like, send it over to Chris. I believe you received it. Yeah, what's next? If you prefer to chat briefly on the phone, let me know. Thank you. So a few hours later, Chris gets back and says, April 17th, 2020, "I've been aware of the situation for a while. Thank you for caring." The next day, he says, "We start an investigation into Shawn's ministry. I'll get back to you in a couple months as we find the truth and bring wholeness. Thanks for reaching out to us." The implication now is Chris has the ball, right? This guy went to Patricia King, who went to Cheon, who went to Chris Valentin, and now the heavy hitters are getting involved, right? These are like people who can make a difference, because if this guy just comes out against Shawn, he'll just get slandered, and that'll be the end of the story, right? Which is what happened before to Justin Smedley, who came out against Shawn, rightly so, and was attacked by Paul Kane and ended up having weird things happen there. Okay, heavy hitters are involved. Something good's going to happen. They're obviously taking the ball. Bethel sees themselves as having a place in this investigation. I mean, they're doing an investigation. Certainly they won't later on say, we have no authority over Shawn. We have no place in this, right? They wouldn't say that later, would they? Okay, so some time goes by. June 18th now. "Hey, Chris, it's been a couple months and wondering if there's an update. It would help my heart to know what's going on. Thanks." It's kind of weird that this person was not, they weren't the victim. They weren't being, nobody's corresponding with them. No one's staying in touch with them to tell them about the meetings they're having, about the confrontation supposedly they had with Shawn. So he has to reach out a couple months later. Then Chris responds, "We have met with Shawn on 3 occasions now. Last Friday, I flew down to meet with him for a few hours. I think we're moving forward, but it's really slow. We've had some very hard conversations, as I'm sure you can imagine. I would like to give Danny your contact info if that's okay. He would like to reach out to you and see how we can help bring some closure to your situation with Shawn." What they're trying to do right now, I think, is broker forgiveness and have Shawn go, "I'm sorry for what I did. How can I make it right?" And for this person to go, "Thank you for acknowledging it. I forgive you. Here's what I'm asking." That wasn't going to happen because Shawn was denying. He was denying that he had done this sexual harassment stuff. Supposedly, it's allegedly, hypothetically true that Shawn told somebody that his lawyer told him he has to lie about it because of the legal ramifications of if it came out, and so he has to take it to his grave. Allegedly, supposedly, hypothetically, possibly in some plausible world. And so it doesn't happen, right? The next text message is from December. So that much time goes by without resolution. It's December of 2020. "Chris, when are you going to intervene? Shawn Bolz has gone 2 years without having to answer for what he did to me, and I keep being passed on like a nuisance. When will he have to answer for the damage he caused to me?" And guys, again, there's over 12 that we're aware of that we could say received similar type treatment from Shawn. And yeah, it's just, even there's stuff I know that I can't even tell you guys. "I've been promised a meeting with Shawn," he says, "where he would clean up his mess, and yet I'm still waiting, and now being told Shawn won't give me an adequate apology. Could you imagine if what was done to me had happened to one of your sons or grandsons? How pissed you would be? But yet restitution hasn't been made, and I'm still pushed to the side like a new..."
So this indicates clearly that Bethel is lying, because if Shawn is denying the charge and then somebody was like, "Hey, he's going to, he's promised to clean up his mess and all this." Yeah, and he's been promised a meeting. Well, clearly if Shawn's denying the charge, that isn't going to happen. So this is Bethel lying. So there's that.
Nuisance. I'm trying to do everything biblically, but growing frustrated. Can you please help? I'm tired of being put off and treated like a nuisance. Does anyone really have my best interest at heart? Shawn is doing his thing and not having to answer for what he did to me. Now, this is exactly the kind of thing a number of other people I've talked to have gone through, because what happens is they go to leaders. Hey, this person mistreated me. This person did this. Their ministry's got major problems. There's financial there's personal abuse type things that are gone, and there's all this stuff, right? The leader who they go to exudes compassion. They love bomb them. They're like, oh, I care about you. I'll pray for you. Oh, yes, I want to be in your corner and have your back. But whenever it comes time to pull the trigger and do something public, they're left on their own. And that's exactly what's going to happen here, as you'll see as we read on. So the next part of the conversation, Chris Valentin responds, you're going to have to understand that I have no authority over Shawn. Wait, what? What? Patricia King, Cheon. They brought it to you for some reason, right, Chris? You then started an investigation, right? You have no authority over Shawn? Like, I don't know what authority you think you have to hold someone accountable who you've brought into your network and you've put on stage and you've introduced as your most trusted friend. At least Bethel has collectively, because Bill Johnson, he speaks for you too. You have a place to do this, but now he has no authority. So I have no authority over Shawn. He doesn't work for me. He doesn't belong to my organization. And I flew down to meet him and spent the entire day there and flew back. I asked him to clean up his mess, and he's evidently decided not to. We've decided to not have him minister in our network anymore and made it very clear that until he repents, you can't have any influence in anything that we do. If he worked for me or was licensed through our organization or even had a deeper connection to us, deeper connection, we'll talk more about the deep connection in a minute. Remember, these are the guys that made Shawn the house.
And this is very interesting because, note, Chris now acts like he's not sure whether or not the allegations are true, but in this text, that's not what he says. He's like, oh, he needs to repent, and he hasn't repented, but I wash my hands of this. I have nothing to do with it. So in this text, it's clearly not a matter of, oh, I do or don't believe him. It's I'm not legally liable. That's what all this mess means. You can't touch me. I have nothing to do with this. We're not legally responsible for what happens. Go away. That's the long and short of it.
Household name in the charismatics, in that stream. Deeper connection. All you have to do is tweet. Just tweet out publicly. Shawn Bolz is a fraud and he is a sexual deviant, and everybody needs to be warned about him. You wouldn't even have to say anything else and it would have worked.
I bet any amount of money, though, there's like some lawyer going, shut your mouth. Don't admit anything, because if you sit there and say he's guilty in any way, you're legally liable. That doesn't make this right in any way, shape, or form, obviously. But I guarantee you they've got lawyers whispering in their ears going, keep your mouth shut.
Anyway, he says, if you worked for me or was licensed through our organization or even had a deeper connection to us, I would certainly be able to do more. If you feel you need to sue him, then maybe that's what you should do. Again, I'm not telling you to do that for legal clarity reasons, maybe. I don't know. And I'm just telling you that if you want to take this further, then I would recommend that you do something that light a fire under him. Remember that phrase, lighting a fire under him? I'm very sorry for your pain. I totally understand how you feel. It's just that we have no authority in his life. They have no ability to control Shawn whatsoever. You're going to find out a lot more soon enough. But this is the bail point. The bail point is, he's not going to listen to us. Well, privately we'll confront, we'll work, but we're not going to publicly do anything. Then Chris, it appears as though he was sending I said for legal reasons, right? So it appears as though he took the message he just sent over to my witness and he sent it to somebody, meant to send it to somebody else. So he copied it and he accidentally pasted it back into the same thread. So he says, this was my response. And then he has the exact same statement again. But there's more. The response to...
But it's also very telling because it suggests that they thought there was a case to be had. It suggests that they did have reason to think that Shawn did these things. Because if the impulse is cover your butt, well, then obviously you don't think the allegations are baseless.
This came from my witness who says, Chris, I do understand that you have no authority over Shawn and his ministry.
However, I do want to point out, that's, just for emphasis, that's a tacit admission of guilt. because they promoted him. They promoted him, and arguably they endangered people, so they're scared of getting sued. So now it's like, we have no authority. We can't, we have no say over this, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, this is, oh crap, he really did it. We gotta make distance. We gotta make tracks. In my opinion, that's what I think's going on here.
I do. However, that doesn't wash you or Bethel's hands of Shawn. And I'm like, yeah, go guy. I won't use any names here, but this is so good what he's about to say. I wouldn't know of Shawn's ministry or know Shawn personally if it wasn't for Shawn speaking at Bethel. I resigned my job at Bethel and moved to LA thinking Shawn was trustworthy and the real deal because of his influence at Bethel. Or maybe because Bill said our most trusted friend, one of our most trusted friends. Maybe because Teresa Debin introduced him as like one of the greatest prophetic voices on the planet. He says, I trusted that the leadership at Bethel wouldn't allow Shawn to speak if he wasn't trustworthy. Shawn wouldn't have 1/3 of his following if Bethel had not given him a platform. I appreciate you and Bethel taking a stand and not allowing Shawn to have influence in your network. What about people that don't hold leadership positions in your network? Good question. The normal people that follow Shawn because they were introduced to him by Bethel's wide reach and influence and continue to do so because they aren't aware of what Shawn has done. Will there be a statement from Bethel? Maybe this would light a fire under Shawn. Wouldn't that have been amazing if, I don't know, 2017, 2015, 16, there had been a public statement? I bet you that would have saved a lot of people a lot of pain and suffering. Will there be a statement from Bethel? Maybe this would light a fire under Shawn. Chris, if you don't mind lighting fires, light one yourself. I know Bethel has been in talks with TBN about having their own channel. Maybe this has happened already. But what about Matt and Lori Crouch, the TBN people? I highly doubt they would continue to give Shawn influence if they were aware of Bethel's change in relationship with him. Maybe this would light a fire under Shawn. I'm not so sure if that's entirely true. He had a presence, he had a show on TBN up until it was finally very loudly, very publicly shouted, and all of a sudden they disappeared it, right? Why does Bethel's online store still offer Shawn's resources if Shawn can't have influence? Good question. Chris, I think these are valid questions. If you understand how I feel, you'll understand where I probably think you said coming from or something like that there. So then January 9th, 2021, he says, I'd appreciate a response to my 3 questions. See, because Chris didn't respond to him. On the 18th, he said, I have no authority over Shawn. Then on December 29th, the reply is, hey, here's some questions I have for you. I don't think this absolves you guys. You should take action. Then January 9th, finally, there's another message from the witness saying, I'd appreciate a response to my 3 questions, Chris. This is now 2021. I don't want to go outside the Bethel stream because I know it will cause damage to Bethel. Now that is the thing that Bethel cares about. They're like, we do not want that. I've spoken to a few sources that are ready to run with the info if Bethel doesn't do the right thing and warn the body of Christ. And I know it will appear like my situation and the fraudulent words of knowledge are being covered up by Bethel. It does appear that way. It does now. It didn't have to. It does now. I'm trying to do the right thing. In regards to question number 1, I don't expect you all to necessarily be specific in your statement, but at least warn the body of Christ about Shawn. I look forward to your response. This is a perfectly modest request. And he's saying, like, if you don't do it, it may come out without you. Okay. And they still didn't do it. Here's the response from Chris. At this point, we don't intend to make a public statement about Shawn. As you pointed out, a public statement wouldn't just hurt Shawn, but the entire prophetic ministry worldwide. It was actually his statement that it would hurt Bethel, as in hurt their reputation because of what it would look like to people. And it will, and it's going to do that right now. As it has since it came out, since it all started coming out. It's just, I'm making it more loud. But Chris's response is that it would hurt the entire prophetic ministry worldwide, that exposing a fake, sexual harassing, deviant, fake prophet, that would hurt God's ministry of prophetic work around the world. Really? Really?
Because they could get sued into oblivion. Because there's a reason Chris ghosted that guy after that response. Because his response was, hey, I wouldn't have been anywhere near Shawn if you hadn't recommended him. That's where the threat of the lawsuit is. And that's why they got quiet. because they recommended the guy. Hypothetically, somebody could go after them. So if they, from their perspective, if they admit Shawn is these things and they come out with a public statement, well, then somebody could go, hey, Shawn did this to me. I'm going to sue you because I never would have been around him if it weren't for you. So that's what this is. And that's my opinion. And so this is covering their butt so they don't get sued. That's what this amounts to. So they're not going to make a public statement, and they can claim spiritual stuff all they want, but it's lawsuit fears, in my opinion. I think that's what this amounts to. That's why they wouldn't admit guilt. So that's the long and short of it. I think that pretty much surmises the situation. Now, in the sermon, Chris acts like he wasn't even sure if Shawn was guilty. But I think, given these texts, looking at them again, because I'd watched this before, I think it's pretty clear he did know. They figured out these were credible allegations, and they were scared of a lawsuit. Because, I think that's what this was. I think he did know, and I think they're trying to, cover themselves, create distance, and all that. If you guys want to watch this, the rest of this, Mike Winger does a wonderful job dispelling the whole situation. I wouldn't say I agree with everything, but this is a very, very solid video. Mike is always very thorough. He did a very good job here. So, again, the video is The Skeletons in Bethel's Closet Are Now Going to Speak. YouTube channel is Mike Winger. We're going to call it a night here, guys. So, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Faith, Fiction, and Folklore. If you did, we would love it if you would subscribe to us on YouTube or follow us on Rumble. We can also be found on X, Instagram, and Facebook. And we are available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and iHeartRadio. Thank you again very much for listening, and we'll see you next time.